My life and political thoughts as a tarot reader who thinks YouTube wants to know what the hell I'm thinking. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Antiques Tarot. Today we are going to talk about governments, AI, critical minerals, and what is not clean energy. There's going to be some clips from the ASEAN conference, as well as maybe a clip from today's news. The G7 conference was up here in Toronto. One of the G7 conferences, they were getting together today, and critical minerals was on the table for trade. So these are the things we are going to talk about, and what I think we need to know about it, and what it all means. Actually, before we get all into that, also coming up this week, I am going to be on Art of Cartomancy, which will be on Kim's channel, Abundant Life Tarot, and I'll be joining Kim and Donna as they will be having a second talk based on my original and rather short video on a different kind of ethics for tarot readers and psychics. And I'm going to be joining them. They have posed many great questions for all three of us to explore, and I really enjoyed their questions, and I think it's going to help me spell out some of what I was talking about in that video in more concrete ways. What does that actually look like? How do I do that? How does that function for me? And get down to some critical details about that, which I am excited to do. And that will be Thursday, November 6th, I think at 3 p.m. Eastern. All right. And let's get into it. Okay. One of the first videos I wanted to talk about or go over was Carney saying, like, yeah, it's a different world, people.
And we begin with the Prime Minister of Canada.
Thank you very much, Prime Minister, for that introduction, for your hospitality, and for your leadership in this vital forum at this historic time, and your leadership over the years and going forward. We respect trade agreements and the rule of law. We value the free exchange of goods, capital, and ideas. We're a natural partner. And as one of your earliest dialogue partners, we value ASEAN as the standard bearer of multilateralism. And I just want to say a few words about how we can contribute to building that. I recognize your words this morning. We're at an uncertain time in the world. There's a shift. We don't know the new system that's going to emerge. This is more of a rupture than a transition. It's a shift that's happening in a short period of time. Multilateralism giving way to transactional bilateral trade, a new era of great power rivalry, technological change, shrinking distance, and increasing the fields of conflicts, developments that all challenge the effectiveness of the institutions on which we as middle powers have long relied. It makes
middle powers. When I first was thinking about making a video about this, I was going to call it the slumber party of the nobody countries. It is. The middle powers got together and we're like, what are we going to do? I don't know. Let's form a club of nobody countries and support each other while we hope that the U.S. eventually comes around and picks us. Singapore Prime Minister Lawrence Wong has a talk, the end of the old rules-based order.
A transition to a multipolar world, a post-American order and a multipolar world. No one can tell how the transition will unfold, but there is no doubt it will be messy and unpredictable because America is stepping back from its role as global insurer, but there is no other country that's able to or willing to fill the vacuum. So we are in an uncomfortable position where the old rules do not apply anymore, but the new ones have not been written. And we must brace ourselves for more turbulence ahead. So what are we to do in this environment? I think we cannot afford to just wait for things to happen or hope somehow that things magically will fall in place. We have to take actions now, plan now and start taking actions to invest together in tackling the problems of the global commons, or in building new trade connections and keeping up the momentum of trade liberalization. So that's something that Singapore is keen to do. We can't do it alone, but we will do it with other like-minded countries.
Can you envision a world without the US?
The US may not be able or willing to join these plans now, but we have to press ahead. And hopefully in time to come, they will come along as well.
And hopefully that eventually the United States picks us, or you, but preferably us. That's what they're all hoping for. That's kind of the impression I got. He was really quite insightful. I don't mean to downplay it, but he wants like the middle countries to all band together and try and keep things going along with liberalism, and stick together that way. It doesn't really make sense when, the opening aspect of it is the old rules are gone, it's over, and there's a lot of turbulence ahead, and the U.S. isn't playing. But anyway, we hope they will. Carney's big pick-me pitch is that Canada is an energy superpower, and he keeps talking about clean energy, clean energy, clean energy. Why does he keep talking about clean energy? Because it's a lie. The clean energy, it's a lie. There's green energy, renewable energy. These are things encouraged by the UN chief, who in fact, the UN chief warns that within 5 years, AI data centers could use as much electricity as Japan. He urges they only be built using renewable energy. They are not renewable, not clean, because clean energy isn't renewable. Carney refers to LNG as clean energy because it's clean on the burn point. But its full life cycle from extraction, storage, transportation, more storage is dirtier than coal because we can't prevent it from leaking. And so the extraction, the holding, the transportation, more holding up until it's used, it's leaking all that time. It is leaking into the environment, throwing off CO2 like crazy. It's not clean. The TAI reports Alberta sees itself as a new home of AI, following in Texas' footsteps as usual. It will also allow the raising of energy prices for homeowners, blackouts, and an overworked grid. Then there's water. Alberta and Ontario want water removed as a human right. Google data centers alone used 5 billion gallons of fresh water in 2022, and AI data centers and their energy and water uses are growing exponentially. So G7 members met in Toronto this week, where Natural Resource Minister Tim Hodgson handed USA uranium promises. Why? Because Canada is using SMRs, small modular reactors, to power its AI revolution. And they run on uranium that needs to be enriched, and there's no enrichment services in Canada, so they're going to give it to the US. The US will enrich it and then sell it back to us higher, and that's how that's going to go. And the SMRs, they're for AI. That is confirmed through nuclear energy and technology. Their report in Science Direct is where I get that information there about the SMRs. They are for data center use. That is why they have become so popular in various parts of the world, trying to massively expand data center use, SMRs. It's not that they're suddenly building a bunch of new homes and needed to give power to people. It's not. In fact, here's Carney's view on energy and who it should be used for.
Energy in the Canadian aluminum exports, which provides 60% of the aluminum to the U.S. market, is the equivalent of the energy of 10 Hoover dams in the United States. Now, is the best use of that scale of energy, creating that scale of energy to make aluminum in the United States, as opposed to continue to foster and power the AI revolution, which the U.S. is leading, or power homes and others? I mean, these are decisions for the United States to make.
To power the AI revolution, or maybe you want it for homes. It's up to your government. That's his opinion. So, what do I take away from this? Stop. Form small crews and figure out how you're going to sabotage the building of data centers. Also, SMRs, they'll use other energy as well, but we know those are mainly for data centers. So if an SMR is going in near you, check to see if a data center is also going in. Look into local, water and energy protections. Ask your city council if they have them, get them going. Not because I believe in settler politics, I don't, but it's the only place where you actually get to influence politicians, right? Like, you don't actually get to influence provincial or state or national politicians under your fake democracies, right? Like, all you get to do is choose the leader of your oppression once every 4 or 5 years, depending where you live, and that's it. You don't actually get to have a say in decisions. In fact, the Natural Resources Minister, Hodgson, he gets asked, like, well, settlers were told in the campaign trail that, the relationship with the U.S. was done, it's over, we're not doing that anymore. And Hodgson is like, no, that's never what we said. They're not going to be our only trading partner. We're going to have others. So we're making trades with others. We made deals with everyone in the G7 on critical minerals and that. And, not just the U.S., but yeah, absolutely, we're still doing with the U.S. And that was covered on CTV today. Maybe we'll see the news reporter be like, whoa, that's not what we were told. It comes at the end of the interview.
Shrink our relationship with the Americans. We're proposing to grow our relationship with others.
Are you sure that you and your party colleagues have never said that you're proposing to not keep the relationship where it is with the United States? Because I remember the Prime Minister saying our old relationship we had with the U.S. based on deepening integration of our economies and tight security and military cooperations is over. That is the message, with great respect, Minister, that Canadians received during the campaign and after. I understand that what you did today is about multilateralism, but not everything on the critical mineral file falls into that category. And the examples I provided are about deepening the relationship with a White House, with a U.S. government that has taken direct aim at our country.
We have said is a reality where we put all of our eggs in one basket, where 70% of our export trade is with one country, is not in our long-term interests, and that we want to continue to have a good relationship with the United States. They are our largest trading partner. We want that relationship to be strong and robust. The Americans have decided they're going to change how the international trading system works. That's their decision. We are going to respond in ways that are good for Canada, and that means we are going to grow our relationships with other like-minded allies. We are going to reduce our dependence on one particular customer. That is good business. That's what any business person would do. That's what this government is doing, because that's what Canadians expect us to do.
Okay, I'm going to leave it on that note. Minister, appreciate your time.
The other thing we need to talk about here is critical minerals, okay? And what I want to talk about is what they're being used for in your AI. And China's stand on critical minerals, and why making deals with the G7 to give them critical minerals Canada is stealing out of Indigenous land is so important to everybody. They're going to tell you it's because China is doing this monopoly and it's heavily controlling the export of the critical minerals it controls. And I'm saying controls because not all of China's critical minerals come from China. They're a colonizer too, right? But the ones they control, they've put these export controls on. What are those export controls? Canada and the US will have you believing that these export controls are preventing the use of critical minerals for medical research and energy storage for clean and green energy, right? No. If you want critical minerals for, increasing your green renewable energy grid, or for EVs, maybe not for the EVs. Yeah, I think actually they fall under it's allowed. Okay, unless it's being used for like vehicles that are weapons. So China is not allowing export of critical minerals that is going to be used in AI security or military. If you want critical minerals for medical resource, China's on board. Have them. So when the US and Canada tells you China is preventing that, it's a fucking lie. What they're actually preventing is the use for it in military and security. So you're not allowed to get critical minerals from China if you want to use it in armored vehicles, if you want to use it in drone warfare, in, AI to bomb Palestinian families, or to drag brown and black families out of their beds by ICE. That is not allowed. That's what's not allowed. And as long as China knows that you're using it for good things, you can have it. So you're also going to want to pay attention to what is going on in Ontario with the Ring of Fire, where a lot of the critical minerals Canada will be stealing and sending to the G7 is going to be coming from. And you need to pay attention where you get your information from. They're going to tell you that chiefs have signed on board. A few Indian Act chiefs have signed on board. Not traditional chiefs. They're opposed to it. When you are listening to Indigenous land and water defenders, stop looking to see what their chiefs say. Our chiefs are as representative of us as your politicians are of you. If you want me to base everything I know about you and your people on what your politicians say, then sure, do the same to our people. But no, the Indian Act chiefs, chief and council chiefs, are not traditional leaders. They're not. They were invented and chosen and elected through means insisted on by the colonizers. And in the so-called United States, they spelled it out explicitly that this system that co-ops indigenous, that co-ops the English translation of indigenous concepts, and what it was created to entice us towards capitalism. That if they created these hierarchical chief and council systems, then we would be fooled by the translations of their names into believing there are systems over time, and then this hierarchy would make capitalism enticing and get chiefs to sell off land, which worked. So be careful who you listen to. Think about it. We're not fucking unicorns. We're not. Our elite are also toxic elite. That's how it works, right? So, you know, don't, when an indigenous activist says this, that, and the other thing, don't go and be like, well, Premier Wab Canoe or Senator Murray Sinclair, like, those people have sold out so far into fucking settler colonialism that they became settler politicians, judges, and senators. Like, there are sellouts. That's who those people are. And yes, Murray Sinclair was a fucking sellout. He invented the term cultural genocide so that he wouldn't have to call what Canada did a genocide. That didn't benefit Indigenous people. Fucking Truth and Reconciliation Commission didn't benefit our people. It benefited Canada by giving Canada a duck and cover story so they wouldn't have to have real reconciliation like South Africa. That's what it was. So don't go quoting our sellouts and our micro elite to take us down, especially when you're supposed to be like a radical leftist. Like, don't do that. You want to know what our activists say? Go listen to our activists. Go listen to them. And that's going to be really important because AI has grown exponentially. And it will continue to grow exponentially, and the impact on our environment is going to be exponential at a time when there's no space for that. We crossed the 1.5 degrees Celsius threshold. It's over. We blew that. You know, like, probably the only fucking honest environmentalist out there, David Suzuki, said, we lost, it's over, we failed. Because we did, we failed. We fucking failed. That. We did, we failed. So, in order to make our starting point for recovery, after we managed to eventually tear down these governments and states and borders around us, like, we need to do what we can to prevent these data centers. And while some of that's going to be able to happen at your municipal level, if you strictly rely on government to stop it, you're useless. You do the things that protesting and whatever not, but we need to figure out how to sabotage the build of these data centers. And we can learn that from, you know, the sabotage of other destructive builds, usually also against the environment. You're gonna have to get out there. And people are afraid, and like, okay, one of my children was charged by the government for $2.2 million for destruction to settler infrastructure. And everyone was like in a panic, and I wasn't worried. And my kid and I laughed about like $2.2 million from where? From where? Where's that money coming from? You know? Eventually they dropped it. Eventually they did. Can things get worse? It's prolonged prison terms in the future. Yeah, they are. They are. Learn to meditate, learn to be bored, or you'll go crazy being held. Learn to deal with those things to keep your mind strong. Learn how to destroy infrastructure as it's being built. That's the lesson for today. Figure it out. Currently, the areas where data centers are vulnerable is in the construction. Access to water and access to copper. They use a whole lot of copper to build them. They need water to keep them cool. You can disrupt this access to water, which will like fry it, I guess. Cyber attacks are also one way to do it. Distributed denial of service or DDoS attacks, which are also a form of cyber attack, and internal sabotage, as well as Mother Earth getting in the way and destroying shit, which is something sometimes we can copy, and bad security practices on their part. So those are their weak places. Also, vehicle theft. Most data centers have parking lots that employees will use to park their vehicles. And although you may not think this is directly your responsibility, it's outside the building, you'll be surprised to know it is. Oh, that was minor. Just maybe that one wasn't really real. Unauthorized access. So the things you can use are, getting it at the construction point, water, and the arrival and shipment of its needs. And if you manage to intercept the copper that's needed, that can definitely be used elsewhere, for other things, as well as like sold off to fund other things. So that's just some beginner thoughts to put out there. All right. Talk to you all later, folks, and enjoy your day.